Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm Keith Downey, your host. And have you ever looked at the Holy Family and thought, how on earth can I even begin to emulate that kind of perfection? Well, this morning, we're diving into that very question. We'll be exploring 5 practical ways you can reflect on the virtues of the Holy Family in your own life. We'll be drawing insights from a really great article from Church Pop, which you can find linked in our show notes. But before we dive into that, I'm curious, Producer Tim, have you ever emulated the Holy Family within your own household?
I'll wait till after you give the 5 ways to do that before I can tell you whether or not I have actually done it. Let's see, emulate the Holy Family, like going to church? I've done that.
That's actually a really good segue into our number 1 here. Number 1 is follow God's laws together. So the article states, the Blessed Mother and Saint Joseph were faithful Jews. The Holy Gospels tell us Joseph was a righteous man. I think you're a righteous man, Tim. And that Mary called herself the handmaid of the Lord. The Holy Family kept Jewish practices, including going to the temple in Jerusalem and raising Jesus according to the law. We are too commanded to follow the law of the Lord. As a family, follow the 10 commandments and hone in on the areas you know your family needs to improve. Interesting. So they also link to an examination of conscience written for parents, which I took a look because I was curious. I'm like, okay, well, I'm a parent. I'm sure I could learn something from this particular version of the examination of conscience. And I was just looking, it's very parent specific. So number 3 is keep the Sabbath holy. And one of the things that said is, what have I done to set aside as the Lord's day, making God the center of our family's day? And I think I don't do that enough. Like, we obviously go to Mass and every Sunday, but really just focusing on like our Catholic faith. I feel like I need to do a little bit more. I don't know about
like something at home where it's not just we compartmentalize our
right.
church stuff. Like, even if it's a majority of the day, it's still compartmentalized. You're like that church stuff needs to infuse everything that you do. Like, even when
right.
you're doing dishes and that kind of thing.
Exactly. So
changing
just
diapers.
Make it I do that every single time I have to change a diaper.
Thank
now. I'm
God
just
I have
like,
teenagers.
I pray. Please, I don't want to get this thrown on me. Anyways, so that's number 1. And what it recommends too is that this is also including the precepts of the church, some of which are based on the 10 Commandments, but all of which essentially the bare minimum for Catholics. So going to Mass on Sundays, we just talked about, holy days, fasting and abstaining on the 2 days required, which is very little. So that's Ash Wednesday and Good Friday, abstaining from meat on Fridays, especially during Lent, going to confession at least once per year, receiving Holy Communion at least once per year, and assist in providing the material needs of the church, so tithing. So that's like the bare minimum, which is not that much. And I think, like, as those that are with families, we can certainly strive to do better than the bare minimum.
Okay, so if that's the standard, then yes, I have emulated the Holy Family.
There you go. See, it sounds very like it's a lot. Like you have to work to be like the Holy Family. But these are practical steps. Okay, so number 2. Practice the virtues together. Okay, so it says, there is no doubt the Holy Family practiced virtue. We know that Jesus and Mary were without sin, so that it accounts for the 2 out of the 3 members. And the litany of Saint Joseph calls Joseph chaste guardian, diligent protector, servant, minister, most just, most chaste, most prudent. It goes on and on. In our own lives, let us examine the ways we can grow in virtue. How can we be more patient, generous, affable, obedient, humble, charitable, prudent, and how can we teach our children to do the same?
Okay, so so these virtues not only apply to us individually as parents, but like to the family as a whole. Like, how can our family be more chaste? How can our family be more virtuous? How can our family be more obedient?
Right, and I think of a couple times, like, if I'm driving. If we're driving to Mass, I guess, or whenever we're driving the whole family, and I get impatient because someone's driving too slow, and I'm vocal about it, I mean, that's doing the opposite. So just trying to be mindful of what you do in front of your children in a negative but also a positive manner. I mean, just this last Sunday, I felt inspired to get donuts and then bring them to my grandfather-in-law with my daughter. I'm like, hey, you want to go? You bring Grandpa his some donuts for like after Mass, and she's like, yeah. So I was just doing something simple like that, and then just spending time with him, just because he's homebound. That's one example that I could think of. So yeah, that's number 2. I guess before we go into further detail, if you're just listening, you're just joining us right now, my name is Keith Downey, host of Morning Joy, also joined by senior producer Tim Mott. And
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, and almost Happy New Year's. And we're talking about 5 practical ways we can reflect on the Holy Family in our own household. We're about to hit number 3 here, which is serve and protect each other. So Mary and Joseph were faithful in their duties as parents, and we ought to remember to do the same. This should go without saying that there is a great necessity in today's age to protect our spouses and children from the dangers of the world, especially spiritual dangers. So what do you think about that, Tim?
Yeah, well, I think most parents, hopefully all parents, would have that kind of instinct for protecting their kids. But you have to know what those dangers are. There's a lot of discernment involved, and so that vigilance, it's something you have to develop. You can't just do it on your own. Even though you have that instinct to want to protect your kids, you don't necessarily know how unless you're honing those skills within yourself. I want to brag about my kids a little bit, though. I've got a daughter and a son, and from the time they were little until now, as teenagers, they have always protected each other in so many ways. I mean, the sibling rivalry is almost inverted in my family. It's like they try to compete with each other as to who can be more different. And I'm like, wow. I guess I really lucked out on that one, because in my family, when I was growing up, me and my brothers, we fought all the time.
That's awesome. That's very good. Yeah, you always brag about your children. That's wonderful. Yes, I think, too, when you mentioned kind of knowing the dangers, I think listening to Catholic radio is a great way to educate yourself and to knowing more about the Catholic faith and knowing, I mean, just listening to The Next Right Thing on a daily basis, they help us understand, like, well, what's out there? What can we do to do the next right thing to be those faithful pilgrims on that pilgrimage to heaven? So just being knowledgeable, learning more about the Catholic faith, and of course, yes, obviously protecting our children away from just the crazy things that are out there, like in the media, that are...
I'm so grateful that you've introduced me to the Is This for Kids with Mrs. Ruby, who joins us about once a month or so to talk about movies. Whenever there's a movie I'm not sure about, I just put their thing on, and they've got this kind of, almost a checklist of like, what do we shield kids from? What do we share? What do we shepherd through? And my son has actually benefited from watching those, and he's made some good media choices because of that. So there you go, protecting from the dangers out there.
Well, there we go. Number 4 is keep Christ at the center. The Holy Family was the Holy Family because of their relationship to Jesus Christ. Are we keeping Christ at the center of our own families? Praying together as a family, orienting our lives around God, living every moment with the love of God and in His service. When I think about this, I also think about the many times that I find myself on my phone, which is unfortunate because I'm distracting myself, and I think that's the case for a lot of people out there. I'm including myself in this, especially if I'm not in a good mood. I want to distract myself with just anything that, makes me happy or whatever, in, the short amount of time that it makes you happy, instead of keeping Christ in the center. And I think that also can bleed into family life as well. So, do you have any tips or suggestions for keeping Christ at the center, Tim?
Well, I think a lot of what that goes back to what we said with number 1 about not compartmentalizing your faith, letting it infuse your entire day, your entire life, but remembering, and I think Adam Bly would tell you the same thing, your attention is your most valuable resource. You put your attention to is going to shape who you become and what you do, and that will in turn shape your family. So But like you said, Keith, I'm guilty of the same things, constantly distracting myself with these, flashing lights and fun games and stuff. And there's a place for that.
Yeah.
When you when you give it its proper attention and not undue attention. And so, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. That we need to focus ourselves, and then that will help focus our family.
Yep. Well said. And lastly, number 5, lead others to Christ. Our primary duty as Catholic spouses and parents is to sanctify our spouses and children. What we'll find is how, in our efforts to raise our own holy family, we inspire and encourage other families to do the same. Spend time around other families who are striving for holiness and be a light to them. Talk about ways each family can grow. Then go to Mass together and enjoy fellowship after. Celebrate liturgical feasts together. Then we'll be able to rejoice together in heaven. That is really well said. Spending time with other families who are striving for holiness and be a light to them. That is, ever since we joined our parish a little bit over 2 years ago, we've met some incredible folks, incredible families that, there's one family in general, they're converts to the faith, and they inspire our family, to be better Christians. It's incredible. I don't know if you've had the same experience in your family.
Unfortunately, I'm very bad at that, being so introverted. So pray for us as we try to stop isolating our family.
Hey, like Debbie and Adam had said before, you take baby steps, right? Don't just go full-fledged. Because I'm also slightly introverted too. So I feel you there on that one. Wow. Anyways, those are 5 practical ways we can just live as like the Holy Family. We'll make sure to have this article linked in the show notes so you can always reflect back on those as we turn to the year 2025. And that is it for Morning Joy, where truth matters. That means this is the very last episode or production of Morning Joy for the year. We can always find us at Morning Joy, just searching Morning Joy Radio on all of the socials, because we are about to transition on over to our after show clubhouse. But if this is us parting ways for the last time this year, God bless and make it a joyful New Year's Eve. We'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning. See you then.
This has been Morning Joy, where truth matters, hosted by Keith Downey. Take some joy with you today. Visit grnonline.com/joy to listen again, share a segment, or answer the question of the day. That's grnonline.com/joy.